Well, here we are, the beginning of yet another podcast venture by Wyatt Phillips and one of his poor friends he conned into his jester's game. Instead of watching every single Toho monster movie or every single goddamn Stephen King adaptation, only on Patreon, it's time to tackle my greatest love, cartoons. And I can't think of a better way to start than by doing an episode based entirely around a weird series of lost bumpers that aired years before both hosts were born. Today we live in a wasteland of white women pretending to be Japanese little girls, also known as VTubers, but Moxy existed before any of that. At the dawn of CGI animation on TV, and the dawn of the Cartoon Network, it wasn't affordable to make full-on CGI TV shows just yet. We would need to wait a year for the Canadians to crack that nut with Reboot, a show only important to me in any way because it led to Beast Wars. However, CGI was viable for things like commercial bumpers and that one Dire Straits music video. Double, however, Cartoon Network was fresh from the womb and certainly didn't have enough money to fully animate using this cutting-edge technology. One would think that they would just give up on this whole CGI mascot business and go do something else, like, say, take a bunch of clips from an old Hanna-Barbera show that no one on Earth gave a fuck about anymore, dub over them instead. But nah. President of CN, Betty Cohen, and Vice President Mike Lazo went to an ad company named Colossal Pictures, who had been partners with Pixar up until just recently, and came up with the idea to create a CGI puppet from what I can only assume was grant money so ludicrously high it would make me want to shoot myself on the spot. They were able to hire both Bobcat Goldthwait and Penn Jillette at the peak of their popularity in the early 90s to perform as Moxy and Flea respectively. Until, for the eventual failed pilot, in Living Color era Chris Rock would take over as Flea. Moxy was ahead of its time in a lot of ways, some good, mostly bad. Moxy himself is a great design, capturing the 90s mascot flair while also being an appealing design in both 2 and 3 dimensions. His 3D look is shaded and structured to look like a 2D cartoon, literal decades before the Peanuts movie did the same thing. Unfortunately for the old dog, he never really caught on with the kids, and also barely any of his stuff was actually live performance, almost defeating the purpose of it being motion capture to begin with. Only a small amount of Moxy bumps still exist, most being relegated to lost media, and while many notable writers worked on Moxy with CN and Colossal Pictures like Mike Lazo, Matt Maiolero, Keith Crawford, and Matt Harrigan, their time to truly shine wasn't with this show, but with one that was cooking just around the corner. As for Colossal Pictures, they evolved into some fucking tendril of the Cthulhu-like media entity that is Wild Brain. It always comes back to Wild Brain. So, does Moxy still got Moxy, or should this flea-ridden beast be taken out back? I guess you'll just have to listen and find out. Hello and welcome to yet another new podcast from the minds of me, Wyatt Phillips. I'm your host, Wyatt Phillips, and this is Cartoon Buffoons. And to ring in the new series, I picked literally only the only other person I know that's as much of a fucking freak as me.
Yes.
Yes.
About
sicko, cartoons.
Sicko.
Yes. Morgan, my good friend.
Hello, I'm Morgan, Wyatt's good friend.
Yeah, and we're here. What is Cartoon Buffoons? Wait, you said you had a bit. Do you want to still go ahead with the...
Oh, see, I do in fact... Yeah. I'm Morgan. I'm Sarah from Ed, Edd n Eddy if she was black.
Yeah. So, that will give you an indication. This, and also the title of it, we're going to be talking about all the Cartoon Network shows. So that our podcasts, that's what's going to be not everything that ever aired on Cartoon Network, because
No.
that would require like every Toonami thing and every Adult Swim thing and
We
every.
are not doing Bakugan. We are not doing Bakugan. We're not doing Beyblade. Just the real shit.
But there are some exceptions. You know, some things where I'm like, okay, we should talk about this, and maybe we'll do some more conceptual episodes, like talk about anime on like Cartoon Network. You know, like that kind of thing. Like
that
talk
would
about
rule.
like.
I need an excuse to talk about Yu Yu Hakusho, so yes, that kind of kicks in.
Yeah. So, but mainly talking about all the shows made for Cartoon Network.
If they had that little
like,
bumper with the thing opening, it's probably going to be those shows.
Yeah, it's going to be those. If it's Megas destroying the Cartoon Network logo and everything like that, that's what we're going to be doing. And I decided that the first episode that we should do should be talking about the first show that was original to Cartoon Network, the Moxy Show. And unfortunately, it's lost media, so there's not that much of it that's like left on the internet. I was able to find a YouTube playlist of like what I presume is all the available episodes, or a lot of the available episodes, and it was like 20 minutes of content probably all together, because there's like a couple 6-minute ones. One of them was in Spanish.
Yeah,
and
I watched that one. Yeah, that was cool.
And then like a bunch of them were like bumpers, and then like little cutaway things.
And we have one pilot, and I think only one pilot was mixed in, and then
yeah. So it was not a lot going on there, but before we get into the Moxy Show, before we dig in to the main topic, which will probably be like 10% of this episode, Morgan, I want to ask you, what makes you qualified to talk about Cartoon Network / just cartoons in general? What's your history?
Oh, my big history is that, and I flaunt this all over the internet as a joke mostly, but I've seen every cartoon ever created. And it's like a joke until someone mentions an obscure cartoon and I describe an episode plot and they go, "When the hell did you see that?" And I go, "I don't know." But yeah, cartoons are weird for me. I grew up, not to get emotional, I grew up vaguely poor, so we didn't have cable. So I watched a lot of like Cyber Chase and other stuff. And when my mom got a good job, we got cable, and we had Comcast, like early Comcast. And I was so obsessed with having cable. I was like, I have to watch every cartoon available.
Yeah.
So like I went on demand, no matter what little station or what innocuous thing, and I've watched every cartoon. And it kind of just stuck with me up until like adult life. Like I just kind of never stopped doing that, because I don't know, cartoons are cool and weird and like bad. Even the bad ones have an artistry to them that you can't really say for like a lot of stuff. Like I think most things have purpose, but cartoons have a very specific level of artistry and design and thought, even when they're really, really bad.
Even the like bottom of the barrel, like Canadian import crap, like
someone worked on this and someone put like at least some heart and soul into it.
Like people worked on and were passionate in some way about the day my butt went psycho. You know, like people cared about that. To a point where like a shitty sitcom, people can make a sitcom and like, yes, some effort is required, but
it's easier to phone in.
Yeah.
Like, because it's like the thing, and also I think above all else is that when it comes to like specific like make like team sense of humors in cartoons more so than anything, they come across like there's a lot of like I watch like a lot of live action like stuff and comedies and dramas, but the way you can pick up what the entire team think is funny in a cartoon is something that's not seen in a lot of things. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, think about how much a lot of cartoons like aired like when we were kids, or versus the kids now, shaped people's sense of humor. Like, Adventure Time broke brains, and Ed, Ed, Eddie broke our brains. So, like,
yeah, exactly. Like, for our generation, it was like, think about how much of early internet comedy is just ripping off like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, you know, and Squidbillies and Robot Chicken and things like that. And like even Family Guy and whatever, like The Simpsons, obviously, probably the biggest one, SpongeBob. just like all these shows that are so iconic and well known, like cartoons in general. Like obviously, if you know my YouTube channel, you know that I mostly talk about cartoons and everything. I myself very similar backstory to Morgan, where like I was poor, lived in the fucking dirty ass trailer in the middle of the country, and didn't have cable. Just watched like PBS and things like that for like the first few years of my life, and then when we moved to the city, and we had cable. I finally had cable in my room. I could finally, because before I would watch Nickelodeon whenever I was at my grandma's house, and I would watch Cartoon Network whenever I was at my grandpa's house. Like, so I still associate those two things with like those two people in my head. Even though like I love my grandma, and I kind of think, look, not to say Cartoon Network is in a good place right now, but Nickelodeon is in like a terrible place. They have like nothing.
Nothing and 1,000 scandals. Yeah, like
so many like pretty much the only cartoon on Nickelodeon that I'm watching and enjoying is Earthspark. So that's Transformers Earthspark. And maybe whenever the desire hits me, the like Monster High show, but those are both toy properties. So, you know, that's more so why. Whereas like Cartoon Network, like, yeah, it's in a pretty dark place, but they still got, like good stuff. A couple years ago, it was at a pretty good place, and then unfortunately HBO Max like destroyed everybody's hopes and dreams.
Yeah, capitalism is a cudgel, as it continues to be constantly.
Yeah, and so I don't want to treat this as like I don't want to deify like the company Cartoon Network. I want to talk about the studio and the people who worked in it across the years, and not just the like important showrunners or whatever, like the iconic people, not just the Craig McCrackens or Maxwell Adams or anything like that, but I do want to highlight everybody who worked on it. And I talked about this with Morgan. I think what I'm going to do, because I haven't 100% committed to it at the time of recording to this, is I want to do an intro at the beginning of every episode, so I'll record that afterwards because it'll be scripted, and then I want to, at the end of every episode, I want to go through as much of the cast and like production crew as I can find for each of the shows, and kind of like highlight them in order to give this perspective of like, look, I want to talk about how much I love these shows and how much they formed my views. Maybe not the Moxy Show, because we'll get
definitely
to it.
Not the Moxy Show. No offense to the Moxy
Show. But just like everything in general, like how it informs who you are and your tastes and everything. But I don't want to like the brand Cartoon Network, I feel, is a complex thing, because for me, and I've talked about this with our friend Nikki, that it feels like they always said that it was like the working man's cartoons compared to like Disney, all those people, this fucking Disney, so it's like, and then Nickelodeon was still like a bunch of artists and stuff that went through Cal Arts or went to art school and everything, and it's not like these people didn't do that. It's not like Kennedy and Craig McCracken and a lot of the people that started, but like some of the first shows on Cartoon Network by like Mike Lazo and Andy Merrill and everything like that, they were just guys that worked at PBS, and they just edited cartoon like commercials for like TBS and stuff for in the 80s. And then eventually they got to the point where they started to become like, oh man, I think this like Space Ghost show is like weird and funny. Like we should like spin that off, or like C-Lab and things like that. They just like grappled onto these like obscure shows that nobody cared about because they were so familiar with it, because they were like these workaday grunts that just like worked at another cable company, just producing commercials or like lining up like reruns and things like that. And like that energy exists even like as you get into other people, you get like Cal Arts people like Penn Ward and Alex Hirsch and people like that, like eventually coming in working on Cartoon Network shows, you still have that like baseline of like these are it's cartoons. Okay,
Yeah, these are the cartoons.
Yeah.
I also think that like growing up, it was weird for me because Cartoon Network was the first time I was aware of that humans made these things.
Yeah.
Look, everyone remembers the classy Scoobo like sound and effect and Rugrats, right?
Mm.
But I couldn't tell you what they looked like when I was a kid. But like, I don't know. I feel like I have like formative memories of knowing what Craig McCracken looked like. Like,
Craig McCracken and Gennady Tartakovsky. Like, whenever I've seen, like, I remember watching like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, and then Craig appears, like a caricature of him appears, and I was like, "That's Craig McCracken."
Yeah,
exactly. Like, I knew as like a 9-year-old. And like, I was like, "Oh, that's Craig McCracken."
And I'm not gonna pretend that like Cartoon Network has always been great to its creators because that's just untrue. But like, I don't know. There's something neat about the fact that like I was a kid who didn't know the business and all that stuff yet, and like I could say, "Hey, that's the guy that's making this thing." And I think that's really important for kids. I think that's one of the things that always made me like Cartoon Network was like, it's cool knowing that someone makes this so that if I would one day want to make cartoons, I don't, I would be able to like know who this person is. And that's like something that's super neat. And I'm glad that like now we kind of live in a time where like very much people are aware of who's making these things, and and probably from like a socialist standpoint, I want to be aware of it so I can tell you they need better conditions. But like it's nice to like know this person and hear what they have to say about their work. It's beautiful in a way.
Yeah, I would say definitely like the democratization of like and like freeing up that info and letting people be like, oh, this person made this thing. For me, that was like, yeah, like Cartoon Network. We'll just say that were we both born in 1995, or were you?
We were both born. Well, you know, my story is that like my mom doesn't remember what year I was in because she like fell into like a medically induced coma. So I'm 1999 or 1995. I mean 1994 or 1995, but yeah, same time.
Yeah, one of the So we're like we grew up with the same kind of like time frame, essentially, of like watching shows. So like, you know, that's why something like the Moxy Show, we weren't even alive when that shit was airing and everything. Like, I don't remember this at all.
No.
I actually asked who will be a future guest. I asked Toby Jones what his relationship with it was, because Moxy appears in a episode of OKKO. And also I knew this factoid, but he like reminded me of it, that like Moxy was going to be the main, like he was going to be the antagonist in one of the Halloween episodes where like there's like a glitch virus that starts affecting reality because KO like clicks on too many like pop-ups on a website, and then it like starts to turn people into these horrible like CG low polygon creatures, and that like Moxy would be responsible for that. Like he would be spreading it. I do wonder if they would get Bobcat Goldthwait to come and be Moxy like for that. They probably would, and I hope that he would be game for that.
Yeah,
that's something that we should
be game to do it. Oh,
yeah, that's something we should talk about.
Voice.
Yeah, as soon as I heard him, I was like, "Oh my god, it's Bobcat Goldthwait!"
I know you from, you know, being up too late and hearing you in movies like Police Academy when my mom was asleep.
So like, oh man, the show. Okay, so basically, they wanted to do a show where, you know, it's like, okay, we're doing cartoons and it's the 90s. This is the new era. So we want to do a CGI cartoon, but it's cost prohibitive at this point, you know, in like 1993 or 92 when they were planning it. It took until Reboot in 1994 for the first like CGI television show, full CGI show to come out. And I unfortunately don't have too much history with Reboot. I was more of a Beast Wars and Beast Machines.
Yeah, I was that young girl who's obsessed with Transformers, and I think I remember telling the kid I'll kill him if he said something bad about Transformers because he liked Reboot. So like honestly, even though I think Reboot's pretty cool, I can't let the streets know because I'm a big Beast Wars head. So.
Yeah, I think I've seen some episodes of Reboot. I enjoyed them. I know people don't like the first season because it's very goofy and cartoony, and then it gets more story driven as it goes on, which is similar to Beast Wars, though, I think.
Yeah, because there's a lot of little Rat Man jokes in those first seasons.
Yeah.
And then people start getting murdered, so, yeah.
Yeah. But this was, like, an attempt to do it in, like, a cheapo way, because Cartoon Network was, like, a cheapo, like, a dump network, basically, that... You know, because all these Hanna-Barbera shows and Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry and whatever else, like, they would air on TBS in just, like, these Saturday morning cartoon slots and everything. They didn't have a dedicated channel for cartoons. And it was Mike Lazo who went, like, to, like, Ted Turner or whatever the fuck, like, whatever higher up, and was like, hey, you have all this shit. We can make an entire network of just Scooby-Doo clones and Jabberjaw and, you know, the Jetsons, all those things that people kind of just tolerate, you know, more so than enjoy. And then Cartoon Network was born. And I believe the first, like, original show made on Cartoon Network was Captain Planet, but we're not doing that because that was... I mean, look, I love Captain Planet. Don't get me wrong, but we're not doing Captain Planet.
Yeah, look. It's too much. I can't. Captain Planet. I love you, Captain Planet. You're important. We need you now more than ever. But no, I can't.
And because I believe it might have started on TBS, and then like the Hanna-Barbera episodes or whatever were on Cartoon Network.
See, that sounds right to me because like as like a wrestling head, I swear I remember Captain Planet being around like. All the like wrestling,
like in 1991 or whatever, like early 90s, like very early 90s, even before Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
And then, so this is like an interesting thing because today, I'm gonna get into this today. So many people on the internet have their CGI characters that they like have motion capture to, and they like play video games and pretend to be little girls.
See, okay, in my notes I have written down was Moxy the first Rantsona, and that's wrong. Moxy was the first VTuber. I'm jumping off of a building. No. I gotta draw a little anime girl Moxy. I gotta stream me playing Devil May Cry 5. It's Moxy now.
Yeah. So Bobcat Goldthwait as a VTuber. So that's like apparently they did the like live action motion capture and I think it was Bobcat Goldthwait that was like doing it.
I think it was multiple people. I think because I remember that they had like, but like also it was like super like cutting edge at the time. Like this is a lot of work to put in for no offense to Moxy, but for the Moxy Show.
Yeah. So they had like they would sometimes have like these little commercials or things like that where it was like you could see that it was a live thing happening. Like there was a couple of those in like the YouTube playlist. But for the most part, it was like pre-recorded, edited skits.
Yeah.
So like the live component didn't matter at all to the fact that they were it was just essentially like, we're just doing this out of convenience so that we can like animate this character without actually having to like go into a computer program and animate it. And like not only that, but we have fucking Penn Jillette is the Flea.
All right, no, okay. Look, I wish I could like. So I was like, I'm going to like have my notes open and I'll do my research after I seen it all. You know, that's what I was going to do. So if you could see, like, the first punch is like, oh, it's Bobcat. That's fun. That makes sense. Bobcat. This is the 90s. That makes sense. And then if you could see the way I was psychically jumped by magicians when I heard Penn Jillette's voice come out of this cartoon flea. I'm like, what was the budget on this? Because, again, this is the 90s. Penn Jillette was like a hot thing, right? I'm not bonkers.
Yeah. I feel like both of these guys, I'm shocked. They would never fucking, like, Adult Swim shows and, like, that these people would go on to make. Like, it's crazy. I mean, we'll talk about it next episode with Space Ghost, but, like, the people that they could pull to do this shit, it's like they must have had a huge amount of Ted Turner's fucking money or whatever, you know, like they must have gotten a huge grant from him in order to afford some of these people. And especially like, because there's one thing to have guest appearances like in Space Ghost, but to have Bobcat Goldthwait and Penn Jillette be like the main characters who are recording audio and like getting paid at that rate for your fucking Cartoon Network show that's just mostly like in-betweens and bumpers and like
for
introducing
for like Looney Tunes.
Yeah. Like and Flintstones and things like that. You know, this is before Space Ghost, so it's before, and even that show is like dubiously like a
put together
original show, you know, like it's still like edited footage of, you know, an old show, but like, yeah, this is just, it's wild.
So I do want to say, like, the Moxy Show, another thing about it that's wild to me is the sense of humor on that show and, like, the style of it clashes with everything he's airing. Having this little, hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, me and Judy Jetson, we're dating. I have sex. And, like, having those jokes lead into, like, now here's Fred Flintstone. I'm like, wait, you can't do that. You can't do that. You're like a 90s hip dog that should be doing a kip flip on like a sports energy drink bottle.
Yeah.
And we're going into like Looney Tunes? Like, it was so jarring.
And like Moxy himself, like he's such a, like, yeah, he looks like a serial mascot, or like he looks like very mascot 90s mascot.
He's at the X Games.
And Bobcat Goldthwait is like a lunatic. Like he's just like not a, like he's just a fucking gremlin, man. Like it's just a weird thing to be like, all right, we're going to have him voice this character. Like this type, it just feels so like weirdly. And same thing with like Penn Jillette being like a cute kind of like a kooky flea character.
That's
with
always
like this,
making fun of him. Like, I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, some people say this show is ahead of its time as like a compliment. I mean, this show is ahead of its time derogatorily, because this could have been on Comedy Central just to make you feel deranged. Like,
yeah.
This is ahead of its time in like an Eldritch horror kind of way.
Yeah. I want to ask Toby, but like, I wonder if, you know, because he's a little bit older than us, you know, born in like the later 80s, whatever. Like if he saw this, and because I remember like as a kid, and I've talked about this with one of my like in real life friends, that I always saw Space Ghost. That was like the wake up at 4 a.m. show, you know, and then it's on, and it like felt like a fever dream because you just like see Space Ghost talking, and there's a bug guy, and there's a famous person on a monitor, and then you just go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And that's like, I wonder if the Moxy Show was that for like a previous generation, like if other people like they saw it and then they saw these, or if these bumpers were like throughout the day and everything, because apparently
he has child guests on to talk to, so I'm assuming it's throughout the day.
Yeah, because that was another thing, is that like the kids, like they have like these little kids like laughing, and it's like, how is Bobcat Goldthwait like
funny to you? Yeah, like, is this your sense of humor?
Yeah. It's just very it's very interesting, I guess.
Like, this is like, you know who would these 6-year-olds get a kick out of? Who? Rodney Dangerfield. Oh, they would have a great time talking to Rodney Dangerfield. Yeah. And I'm like, that's the same energy, and it's weird. But also, like, me as an adult, I can dig it because it's funny. Like, it's funny how strange this was, because this just doesn't make sense. Also, I know I talked about it a little bit earlier. It's weird how many jokes about dating humans Moxy makes in this fucking show.
he's horny as hell. That's something that we're missing from modern cartoons, honestly, is like having the characters be horny. So that's like, we just need more of that. And we need like, now Cartoon Network needs this more than ever. Hire a VTuber, hire somebody who is like a green dog, like something like on YouTube doing.
One of the weird ones with like a giant rack that makes me uncomfortable, and then I can never watch cartoons again.
Yeah, and then they come on and they talk about, like, I don't know, like what is even airing on Cartoon Network? Like,
I don't know, they canceled everything.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing I was going to say. Like, they can't even hit on any of the characters because they're all children. But
yeah, have Germa do it. Germa's like, have Germa, like, put Germa like a little thing and have Germa on there. Also, we buried the lead of, like, when we saw the pilot of the Moxy Show, the craziest recasting I've ever heard. So if I had a visceral reaction to Penn Jillette, watching the pilot and it's now Chris Rock literally killed me. My heart stopped, and I laid down. I was like, "Hey, this is fake. This is fake because this is like '90s Chris Rock. This is like swimming in money, Chris Rock. How the fuck did y'all afford him?"
Yeah, that's like, I have no idea. Just this entire thing, I'm like, how do they get all these fucking people to agree? I guess that's why they didn't get. It's a lost media. It didn't get like picked up as like a full show. It just became these bumpers because the whole gimmick is that Moxy is a cartoon character that's like desperately trying to get a show, and he just can't get a show. And it's because like they had the pilot, and then it just was like, we can't do this. We can't do like a whole show with this. So then they're like, all right, but what if we turn that into like a storyline? What if that's like part of its character?
He got an audition and like, so that would work if, and I'm so sorry, writers of the Moxy Show, it was funny at all. It was funny even a little bit, because let me tell you what. Listen, Moxy's bumpers, I had a good time. He's weird. He's a little eldritch. It's scary. He reminds me of like having more insight in Bloodborne. Moxy as a pilot was like pulling teeth. The jokes were not joking. Because like, guys, monkeys are funny. Okay, as someone who loves a monkey, monkeys are funny. Monkey aliens who are like, kidnapping people. All right, guys, we're not really getting the connective tissue here for the joke.
This, like, and there's a lot of, because we're going to be, like, for the format of the show, every so often we're going to take a break and talk about some pilots, like failed pilots. So many of those are fucking terrible. Like, they're just bad. Just like, really no bad. Shit they didn't get picked up. Some of them are really good, don't get me wrong. And especially, like, recently, there's been a lot of really good pilots that I'm just sad never got picked up to become shows. Which is why I want to talk about them. But, like, man, I think it's because the people that are writing cartoons in, like, the early 90s are people who were still, like, they were either, like, right out of school, so they're, like, fresh artists.
The least funny period of your life is right out of college.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they're people who they're, like, 50 and they've been working in animation since, like, the 60s, and they've been working on, like, these crappy Hanna-Barbera shows and, like, toy shows in the 80s or whatever, so their brains have just been like warped to thinking that, like, to like a Care Bears level of like, this is funny, like that, oh, we're doing something edgy, we should have like a smelly foot on there, like that's what's edgy. So it's like just completely wrong. That being said, like, some of the people that are writing on it would go on to make some excellent stuff. I mean, Matt Mayalero, who was like the freaking like Aqua Teen and Squidbillies and 12 Ounce Mouse, all amazing television. I don't care what you say. 12 Ounce Mouse is amazing. 12 Ounce Mouse is
really good. I don't care.
Yeah.
My mother hated it. My mother would walk into a room with me, watch 12 Ounce Mouse, and be like, "Hey, can you turn this shit off?" And I'm like, "Sorry, Randy." And I would turn it off, and then I'm like, "But look at the shark. Look how differently the shark is drawn than the other ones, Randy."
Yeah. That's not, what is it? Kentucky Shark? Yeah, whatever. But Trial of Straws is fascinating because Adult Swim in general, like, these shows are funny. Like, Aqua Teen is funny because it's like, I can't believe this stupid bullshit is a TV show. Like, that's the joke, like the macro scale joke of Aqua Teen is like, I cannot believe they made this into a TV show. And like the next step of that joke was something like 12 Ounce Mouse, where they're like, we're not even going to make, that was too artistic.
Yeah, that was too much effort.
Drawing stupid things and making you look at it was too much effort. Now we're just going to not have any, like, we're just going to draw bullshit. And then that's what is going to, you're going to watch it, you dumb asshole.
I always felt like there was like almost like a, we're playing chicken approach to some of those Adult Swim cartoons that I think is beautiful, of like, oh, that's your bottom? Fuck you. Here's less energy. Oh, that's your bottom, dude? Fuck. Here's a show that's just infomercials. Die.
Yeah.
Let's go at it, dude. Like, and then you have stuff like Moral, or like, no, actually, I'm putting my heart and soul into this. I'm like, okay, well.
Yeah, that's the thing, is because then you get like Moral Oral and you get stuff like Joe Pera, which are very different shows, but like they have the same identity of like, the joke is, you think it's going to be just a joke and then it gets serious. Yeah. And like with Moral, it gets very fucking dark, and then Joe Pera, it's like more sincere. Both are sincere, but like, you know, Joe Pera is a lot more lighthearted. And that's like that's the joke, so to speak. But it isn't like the people writing it are like, haha, we pulled one on you. It's, they actually care about what they're creating in the world that they're building, and everything like that. And like, that's the twist. And even shows, you know, like Venture Bros, like that begin as very much like, we're just parodying old Hanna-Barbera shows, and then it like slowly builds its own world.
Yeah.
And then like the Monarch becomes like one of the greatest fictional characters like to be on TV, you know, like going through so much growth and change throughout all this. And then like Premiere season 7 is like one of the most insane like season premieres of like any show. Like it just like escalates and gets to this like amazing point.
Yeah, and I think like the Moxy Show, like I could dog on it. You can see what's gonna come in the Moxy Show. There's hints to it like in the show itself. Even the quality's not there. And the thing is though, when you like at this point where cartoons was at, you kind of needed a show like this, because let me just say, TV hosts hosting like a talk show / thing where other cartoons are airing, a format that lasts for decades afterwards. Because people like literally like this, then you have Space Ghost, then you have Brack doing it, then you have Cartoon Fridays. It's a format that really, really works. And maybe we wouldn't have it if it wasn't for this super annoying dog that wasn't funny.
And like I said, it's just crazy that like Bob, I just don't feel like he, other than like having a funny voice, that's like, I feel like that's the only thing kids would find funny, because otherwise he's just like a fucking lunatic. Like, you know, we'll get into it in the Space Ghost episode, but like his episode on Space Ghost, like you immediately see like, oh, he's one of the few guests that knows exactly what kind of show he's on, and is like playing into that, and that's like entertaining because of that. Because some of the guests, I mean, it is also very funny when the guests are like completely thrown off by what they're doing. But like Penn Jillette, like I feel like he's especially bad as the Flea, because the Flea like he's not like a bad actor. I mean, he is kind of wooden and shitty, but like he's miscast because that Flea character is clearly supposed to be like, ugh, I'm wacky. Like that's his design. But then it's just Penn Jillette, like,
just
riffing.
Normal, like this handsome-sounding fucking Flea. I'm like, get out of my face.
Yeah.
Chris Rock does it a little bit better, but that's because Chris Rock himself is a goof and a loser.
Yeah.
It's kind of mean. I'm sorry, Chris Rock. No, I'm not. You fuck you. But
yeah, I mean, you know, recently got slapped in the face by Will Smith.
Why, that's like 2 years ago. Recent?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That was fuck, man. Last year was like a complete blur for me, honestly.
The stomp of time never helps.
Jesus. But yeah, so that was I don't know. That was a Moxy Show. I think we're.
Do I have any? I'm trying to see if I have any other. Oh, I hate to say this. I really, really do. The show has a vague John K energy to it in the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was watching, I'm like, this reminds me of something. And then I remember who it reminds me of, and I'm like, ugh. No.
Oh yeah. Oh, dude. Some of those early pilots are like, there's like one, like Captain Crab or whatever. Like there's a couple of them where I'm like, this is just freaking. This guy must have either like been a huge fan of Ren and Stimpy or worked at Spumco like before John K abused him enough that he moved to somewhere else, because like it just looks and is like a shittier Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah,
you know, because like
oh god, I remember that.
Yeah, as bad as John K is like as a person, he surrounded himself by talented people.
True.
So and was a soul vampire to them, but the content that was created in the first 2 seasons of Ren and Stimpy, and like even, you know, the later seasons when John K was kicked off, like are still funny because all the people making it are talented. It's just the guy who was running the show was a fucking asshole on other things.
You know what? This isn't like, you know, necessary, but I'm having a list right now called cartoonists. That's not a fucking word. People in animation who shouldn't exist. And it's going to be called the John K Award. Because John K should exist. So yeah, John K really would have lost nothing. But yeah, it does suck that, like, I never liked Ren and Stimpy, but God, it's influential to a lot of people at this time. And then it stopped being influential to anyone very quickly, which is...
Yeah, I think so. And, like, there are a lot of people that are, like, oh, man, I still... Like, there are people... I feel like whenever people talk about how much they love Ren and Stimpy, they do it with this sort of energy where they're, like, ignoring... Their, like, mental barrier is, like, locking out any type of thought about, like, maybe I shouldn't, like... parade how much I love this show that was created by this specific person. You know, like...
Yeah.
I feel like that's... You know, I have complicated feelings about that kind of thing, like separating the art from the artist, because on shows specifically, so many people are responsible for
it's
quality
such
of a show.
like a combination of people that, like, it's really hard to think about in that kind of sense.
Yeah. So, like... But in that case, like, he made that show so much a part of his brand that it's like kind of hard to separate it from him, and like the Loud House and things like that, like similar things where it's like people like just sort of made it so much of their personal brand. Whereas like I would say a show like Clarence is, you know, like Skylar Page was a bad person, but
it was so much. It was so much outside of that.
Yeah, it was so, and then like Spencer Rothbaugh like really took charge and really, you know, like he replaced Clarence's voice and became the showrunner for like the second half of season 1 and the rest of the show. Like it feels like that show was able to, like, it had maybe that reputation early on and then was able to escape the vacuum and sort of like forge its own. Now I just think of like, oh, of course, Spencer Rothbaugh, he's the Clarence
same
guy.
Very same with Clarence,
you know?
yeah. But yeah, that's just
yeah.
that is the Moxy Show.
Yeah, we're done with that. We laid a little bit of a baseline talking about Cartoon Network, and we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna try to go and do all these shows in order. Though maybe once in a while we'll like skip ahead because there is some things where I'm like, look, it might be unrealistic for us to do every single show ever. And there's some shows like way later down that I really want to talk about. Stuff like Craig of the Creek or Mau Mau or whatever.
Like Class of 3000. I'm not kidding. Class
of 3000. I really want to get to Class of 3000 because that wasn't on Boomerang. If you remember, like I did a couple videos where I talked about, I was like watching Boomerang and I was like, oh, Camp Wessel is like actually pretty good. And then I did a video on that, and then like my gym partner is a monkey, and I was like, oh, what other shows are on here? Is there Class of 3000? No, not on there. So that sucks.
It's anti-black.
Yeah, sucks.
Truly,
it's such a fucking good. That's such a good premise for a show. The idea.
It's so good, and I can't wait to talk about it. I do think, however, the fact that motherfucking Andre 3000's character in Classic 3000 is named Sonny Bridges and not Andre 3000 drives me up a fucking wall. But it's fine.
Yeah, the intent is still there,
Welcome to the Beyonce show. Here's Jessica. Fuck you.
Yeah. But all right. That'll do it for this episode. Morgan, do you have anything to plug before we leave?
You can find me on the internet at Girl Next Vor on pretty much everywhere except for Twitter, where my Twitter is a secret because I'm awful on it. I'm awful. You don't want it. I draw, I do other stuff, but mostly I'm just vibing. So yeah.
A lot of shit
posting. You can also it's on break right now, but I'm also on an actual play where I play as in the DC universe, which I don't think we're going to talk about that stuff because I think that's separate, isn't it? But
I put a couple of them are like Justice League is definitely like a Cartoon Network show, and
then I'll hold off on what I do with the DC universe until we get there. But yeah, you can just find me at Girl Next Vor on Tumblr and other places where I draw and I talk about really stupid video games, usually vampire ones. That's the main thing. So yeah.
All right, and then you can find me over on Twitter, WASP Ranger, WAZP Ranger, mostly just stream of consciousness stuff. If you're listening to this on Patreon, thank you. You donated at the $5 level. If you want to listen to it on Patreon, donate at that level. But if you're listening to it on the free feed, I'm going to be putting it up on my YouTube channel because it's all cartoon related. So if you're listening to it on the YouTube channel, you already know where to go. But if you don't, it's only magic. And I do a bunch of other cartoon related stuff. I haven't done a video in a while, but I'm getting to it. Don't you worry. And this is just like a way for me to be like, hey, when I get my voice out there, get more people, to check out my other stuff that are on Patreon, which is like not just this show, but also the show that I do with Cody, where we talk about every single Stephen King adaptation.
Hell, that sounds like hell. I hope my two friends are okay.
And like right now, we took a break from that, and he decided to do, to take us on an adventure through all of we picked 2 episodes from every season or era of classic Doctor Who, which I have never seen, and it's been a pretty entertaining experience. None of the doctors are adorkable, though, like they were when I was on Tumblr in 2013. So...
I'm manifesting a bus to hit you, by the way.
but yeah, and then if you don't have enough money for $5, that's a-okay. Even at the $1 level, that would be a lot of help. And you also get Wow Cool Robot, which is me and my friend Wayne, us talking about every single robot in existence, 5 to 10 minute episodes. We just did Char's Zaku 2, which we declared the cool robot.
It is that's a good the definition of a cool robot. It's fucking red. It goes faster.
Yeah,
because it's red. So
yeah, absolutely. But that will do it. And join us next time as we talk about Space Ghost Coast to Coast with our guests. Yeah. with our guest Toby Jones. See you there.
Hey, Flea! What did they do before television?
Well, they discovered new continents. They made major breakthroughs in medicine. There are symphonies written.
Wow, good thing they invented television, huh?
That's for sure.
Made us smarter.